What's going on, YouTube? So the Tacoma has long been the dominant player in the midsize truck market. However, with lots of new rivals like the Ranger and Gladiator entering the segment, Toyota isn't waiting for them to catch up. They are giving the Tacoma an extensive refresh for 2020 that addresses the majority of the complaints that people have had about it. Now, of course, we do want to especially thank our friends at Frankfort Toyota for giving us access to this Tacoma. And if you're in the market for any new Toyota, make sure you stop by their dealership or visit them via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with that all said, let's see everything Toyota has updated. So kicking things off here with the exterior design, the 2020 updates are going to start right away. It's not a huge change, but Toyota has redesigned all the grills again this year. So both the TRD models come with this dark gray honeycomb texture, though the Sport model also throws in a hood scoop. The remaining three trims all share the same square bar design, however the Limited will of course have a brighter silver finish. But turning to the headlights, they are probably the more noticeable exterior change, since we now have fully LED lights with a brand new bracket daytime running light and premium sequential turn signals. Now these lights are only included on pretty expensive Tacomas, so if you don't choose them, you'll have pretty much the exact same halogen setup from last year. Finally, at the bottom, all but the base model will come with fog lights, and every Tacoma has an excellent 9.4 inches of ground clearance. Now as far as all the rest of the styling, it sees far less changes than the front. You still have black trim around the wheels for this off-road model. And as far as the cab and bed configurations, there are still access and double cabs with 5 or 6 foot beds. The back doesn't receive any significant updates, but the clear lenses that were limited only last year are now also on the TRD models. Down below, you have a side-mounted exhaust and a full-size spare tire. So overall, Toyota did a great job with this refresh, since they took what was already a handsome truck and fully modernized it. Now turning our attention to the wheels here, many of the designs have also been changed this year. SR trims start out with 16-inch alloys, and then working up to this TRD Off-Road also gets 16-inch alloys, but wrapped in thick Goodyear Wrangler tires. The TRD Sport, on the other hand, has 17-inch machined alloys, and then the Limited rounds things off with 18-inch polished alloys. Moving on up to the mirrors, they are always power adjusting and heated on TRDs and up. Additionally, Limited models will see standard blind spot monitoring, or like this truck, it can be added via the tech package for TRDs. And then as far as all the other active safety equipment, the Tacoma includes automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, lane departure alert with sway warning, adaptive cruise control, and auto high beam headlights as standard equipment across the board. None of the rivals have those systems standard on all the trims. Now of course, being a truck means that the bed and towing are very important. So starting out with the bed, you do have an easy lower tailgate, standard sliding tie downs, cargo hooks, power outlet, and even a standard bed liner. And then as far as the towing, all models have at least 3,500 pounds of capacity, but it can be increased up to 6,800 pounds with the V6 tow prep package. Well guys, that's going to finish up things here on the exterior, so now let's check out the big interior changes before we take it on a drive. So on the TRD Tacomas and up, you're going to find Toyota's Smart Key Entry System. Just one thing to be aware of though is that if you choose either of the TRDs with the manual transmission, you will sacrifice this as well as the push button start. course, getting inside the vehicle itself is super simple. You're just going to grab the handle since there is a sensor. And taking our first look inside the 2020 Tacoma, as you can see, the main parts of the design are going to carry over, but there's a lot of different updated elements as we go through the cabin. Now, starting out here with our colors and materials, you're going to have quite a few selections. So on the SR through the TRDs, that's going to start out with cloth seating. However, on the TRDs, we do have optional leather, which is what we have here. And then the Limited will come standard with leather, of course. Now, as far as the colors, you have cement gray on the SR. You have the extra options of black with caramel or red accents when you go for the SR5. Then when you go for the TRD models, they come with black or black with orange accents. And then the Limited has black or hickory options. Now turning over here to your door trim, it is nicely appointed. We do have kind of a rubbery material that goes through this area. It would of course be leather on the Limited. As far as the windows, they are one-touch automatic for your driver and passenger. And then we have one of the big 2020 changes, and that's this 10-way power driver seat. It is now standard on the vast majority of models, starting on the SR5 and up. And this, of course, was a feature that was not available on any Tacoma, even the fully loaded model last year. Like I've mentioned, this is the optional leather, so it is the same as what you have on the Limited. So you have like some of this soft bolstery area, but then you have kind of a harder, more durable type of textured leather here in the middle. Definitely an interesting look, and I do like that. We also have the optional Predator steps on this model. So just put your foot right there and makes getting in pretty easy, though they could be a little bit bigger. So like I already said, there's not really huge changes to the design or the materials for 2020. So we'll continue to have a hard touch upper dashboard. And then when you drop into the middle portion here, this will vary depending on the trim. We have this rubberized texture on the TRDs. Of course, it would be a leather material on the Limited. And then as far as all your lower areas, they are mostly hard touch. But everything in this truck is super durable feeling, and in typical Toyota fashion, you're not going to notice any panel gaps or anything like that. So on the TRDs and up, press the button to start. Now what you'll be noticing here is a change for 2020. Not in the design itself, this was already available, but in the fact that this more premium 4.2-inch multi-function display, this is now standard on all of the trims instead of the previous smaller one. This does work the same way as in all other Toyotas, so you've got your typical information, including all of the safety settings on this last tab. As far as the steering here, of course, is electric power assisted. You do nicely have a leather wrap steering wheel on all but the very base SR trim. And then as far as the steering wheel itself, it is manually tilt and telescoping. However, heating is not available on any trim. Now as far as storage is concerned, the Tacoma definitely has plenty of spaces to stick things. So we do have a pretty deep center console here. We also have two of our charging USB ports are inside of this. Up in front of that, we have a third cup holder and an extra storage bin, our two main cup holders, and then the major storage bin right up here in the front. Now you will notice this has a Qi wireless phone charger on that, and Toyota has nicely included that on the TRD trims and up. Now I do also want to point out this button right here for the rear window. It is power adjusting, and that's standard on all but the very base SR trim, so it's definitely a very nice touch that most of the competition makes only for the fully loaded models. Now heading back here to your shifter, this is the same gated shifter as last year. You can bump over here to the left to shift manually like so, but you're never going to find any paddle shifters on the Tacoma. As far as when we go into reverse here, you will find a standard backup camera across all the models. On this specific model here, We do not have active trajectory, but we do have the optional parking sensors that come via the technology package. Now, the big news this year, though, is that a 360-degree camera system is optional on the TRD models and standard on the Limited, and that's actually a class exclusive feature. Alright, now moving on up here to our climate controls. They are manual adjusting on all but the Limited as standard equipment. However, this TRD, like we've already said, has almost all the options, so we do have the dual zone automatic setup. Of course, as you can see, very simple to use with big knobs, 3 big knobs to make all the main types of adjustments here. Up above that, we also have the 3-stage seat heating. That is optional with the premium package on this model and standard on the Limited. And then right here you do have your 4-wheel drive controls. Alright, so now that brings us up here to our audio systems. Now Toyota puts a 6-speaker sound system standard across all of the trim levels. However, its JBL sound system is optional on TRD, standard on Limited. That's what we have, so let's go ahead and take a sample. As you can probably tell, the sound quality of this system is very good, and I'm especially impressed since it is only 6 speakers. Alright, so now that brings us here to our Entune system. So this has a lot of different changes. We'll go ahead and jump into that. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to start off with here is just talking about the screen in general. Now, every 2020 Tacoma is going to come with a new screen for 2020. Now, what you'll be looking at in the vast majority is going to be this 8-inch display. This is on the SR5 and up. As you can see, it is higher resolution. You also have physical buttons on the side instead of the previous capacitive touch ones. If you go for the lower model, the SR, that's going to come with a 7-inch display instead of the previous 6.1-inch display. Now, getting into the actual software itself, this, of course, is the newest Entune 3.0. It does work in a similar way to the old one, but with better graphics and a lot faster performance. Now, heading into our applications here, one of our important additions for 2020 is this button right here. This turns into either Apple CarPlay or Android Auto when you plug in a smartphone. Both of those are new for 2020. And then the last big feature that I want to talk about is your navigation. Now, navigation used to be standard on the TRD models and up. However, Toyota has upgraded this to the brand new dynamic navigation system, and now it is optional on the TRD models and still standard on the Limited. Now, this is a much better navigation system. It does have the upgraded graphics, upgraded performance. It also auto updates over the air and has things like live traffic. But that's going to be the main features of the brand new Toyota Entune 3.0 system in the Tacoma. We'll refer you to our dedicated tech help video if you want to learn more about this system. A link to that is in the video description. Now, heading on up from that, we do have an auto dimming mirror with 3 HomeLink universal remotes. That's standard on the SR5 and up. And then we have one of the important TRD Off-Road exclusive features, and that's going to be your multi-terrain select controller. So this gives you access to a lot of different off-road modes. So if you're wondering why you might want to spend limited money on a TRD Off-Road, that's one of the reasons why. Additionally, you will notice here on this TRD Off-Road, we do have the moonroof. This is standard on the Limited, optional on this model. And it is worth pointing out that the main competitors of this truck still do not offer moonroofs. So definitely an advantage for the Tacoma. So all in all, the cabin of this 2020 Tacoma remains a very satisfying space to spend time. It is mostly the same as the years prior, so it keeps the pros of that but it does add the extra upgrades this year, which make it even better. Alright, so that's going to do it for the front areas. Now I'll hand it off to my brother Mason to check out the back. Now looking at the Tacoma's rear door trim, it is the same materials as the front. So you have this rubberized material right through here. Down below that we do have 2 bottle holders as well as some storage beside that. And in terms of features for the Tacoma's rear seat, you aren't going to find any, but you will find these 2 cup holders here on the top. However, like vents, heated rear seats, all that stuff will be pretty much reserved for the full-size trucks. And here in the center, we also do not have a center armrest for 2020. Up top, we do have some lighting as well as an assist grip. And in terms of space, we do have 33 inches of rear legroom and 38 inches of rear headroom, which does place it a couple inches behind most of the rivals like the Ford Ranger. However, behind rear seating position, I have about an inch or so of space, and my feet can slide halfway up underneath the seat, so it is a pretty comfortable place to sit. Now, since this is a truck, after all, you do have plenty of usability when it comes to the seats. So with this strap right here, you can kind of fold the seat down like this. However, more useful, you can fold the seat bottoms up and have storage up underneath the seat. Now for 2020, I don't see a strap or anything, so all you have to do is just grab the side here and kind of yank up, and then the seat will fold up. Now underneath, you will notice this little storage bin here. You can just unlock it right like that. And as you can see, you can fit quite a bit of stuff up under here. It goes all the way over to that seat as well. So anything you want hidden from view, this is definitely a great place to keep it. Now, one feature worth mentioning is that you now have these smart entry sensors here on this passenger door as well. And the seat itself is going to be 4-way manually adjusting across all of the trims. In front of the passenger, we do have a decently sized glove box. As you can see, it opens quite wide, and there is pretty good depth to it. As you can see, it is not felt lined or illuminated. And up top, we do have a sun visor with some lights and a mirror. It does also detach as well as extend. Well, anyway, guys, that sums up all the rear features of this 2020 Tacoma. So now let's go ahead and get out on the road and see how it compares to its modern rivals like the Ford Ranger. Alright, so first punching the throttle here in the 2020 Tacoma. Power feels pretty good, of course. You know, this Toyota made a lot of changes to the outside and the inside. They didn't really do so much to the powertrain. It's going to carry over unchanged, so we're still looking at the same 3.5 liter V6 with 278 horsepower as last year. Now, there is still a 4-cylinder on the lower end models. Yeah. The V6 will come on the TRD trims and higher, and the SR and SR5 are going to come with that 2.7 liter 4-cylinder with 159 horsepower. And this is still available on those. So the vast majority of everybody that gets the Tacoma is usually coming away with this setup right here. Yeah, because I don't know if 159 horsepower is really going to be all that adequate for a pickup truck. I could be wrong, but we've never been in the 4-cylinder model for the Tacoma. Right, for basic purposes, it's probably fine, but most people would prefer to have a little bit more power than that. Yeah, there's no power problem whatsoever with this. Definitely gets up to speed, even uphill like we were just going up.
Now I do also want to mention the ride quality of this truck. You know, just riding along here, we're going about 40 miles an hour. You know, it is a very comfortable truck. We've actually ridden quite extensively in the Tacoma. A couple of our family members have Tacomas. And it's a very comfortable truck. I mean, everything in this class does a pretty decent job of, you know, being comfortable on road, and this is the off-road model, and it does have that capability, but it still has a lot of on-road comfort, so you don't necessarily have to go for the limited to get, you know, a comfortable ride.
Right, and the only thing I notice here is there's a little bit of springiness. You know, that is a characteristic of vehicles that have the added off-road capability, like the Tacoma does. You know, all Tacomas come with a pretty good amount of off-road capability, and especially when you choose this off-road model, you're going to have good articulation and things like that, and the springs are going to naturally be a little bit softer, which is why it's a slightly bouncy ride here on this model. As far as the transmission, once again, it is carryover. It's a 6-speed automatic. As far as I can tell, it seems like the tuning and programming of it seems to be basically the same as last year.
And you do have a 6-speed manual version, standard on other trim levels. And one thing I am a little bit noticing here is that a lot of noise does kind of come into the cabin, but we were talking about this earlier and how pretty much every truck in this class does that. It doesn't have like the super level of refinement like a Platinum F-150 or anything like that would have. It's just pretty much the mid-size truck segment having a little bit more of a rugged feel to it, more traditional truck vibe to it.
Right, I mean, this is a thoroughly modernized truck, of course, but Toyota does emphasize the off-road capability of this truck and does give it kind of a more classic and in some situations kind of an old school feel, which, like you said, I think people appreciate more in the mid-size truck segment than in the full-size truck segment, because you've seen that shift towards higher-end stuff in that segment, but here people are looking for value, and they're looking for something that's like, you know, it's a truck designed to be a truck, not a luxury vehicle.
Now, talking in terms of fuel economy, the Tacoma does come standard with 2-wheel drive, of course optional 4-wheel drive, and there's about 100 different fuel economies that we could point out because different engines and two-wheel drives. So the most common configuration, which is pretty much what we have here, is the automatic 4x4 V6. That's going to come in at 18 city, 22 highway, 20 combined. That's pretty competitive fuel economy with the rest of the class.
And the last thing I want to talk about here is just going to be the steering. It's got quite a bit of heft to it, which I really like. It feels like, you know, very truckish. It's very accurate as well, so you can actually have a good sense of where things are placed. You know, so I do like the steering setup. Some trucks nowadays, like we were saying with the luxury mindset, they can be like extraordinarily numb, which you don't want because trucks tend to be bigger and you need more of a sense of how to maneuver them, and that's definitely not a problem here in the Tacoma. But to conclude here, the Tacoma pretty much drives the same for 2020 as it did for 2019 and the years before that. So if you've experienced a previous one, we're pretty much looking at the same thing here for 2020. Now, I don't say that as a negative thing at all. This is definitely a very nice driving vehicle. I would say right in line with the Ranger and the Colorado. You know, and really the big takeaway is just, like we had mentioned, it feels very much like a nice, rugged, tough truck, and I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, and that's why it's so popular year after year.
Alright, now the prices I'm about to mention to you are in the cheapest possible configuration of each trim level. So for the very base SR trim, that's going to start at $26,050. The SR5 is $27,825. The TRD Sport is $32,745. You have this TRD Off-Road starts at $34,000, and then you have the Limited at $38,790. Now we have opted for four-wheel drive, so our starting price is $36,965. And then we also have pretty much every single option you can throw on this truck. So we have LED headlights with the black bezel for $485. The TRD Premium Off-Road Package for $4,285. The Technology Package for $770. All-weather floor liners for $248. A bed mat for $120. Door edge guards for $140. Mud guards for $129. The Predator tube steps on the side for $649. Wheel locks for $80. And then when you add the destination charge of $1,095, this particular model as equipped comes in at $44,966, which is definitely about as expensive as you can get the Tacoma. That is pretty expensive for this class of vehicle, but it is worth noting that you can get like this fully loaded TRD Off-Road, and it's pretty much equivalent to like a fully loaded Limited in terms of price.
Well guys, we've enjoyed watching one of the first in-depth looks at the refreshed 2020 Toyota Tacoma TRD Off-Road. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.